Good morning and welcome back to our next session on dynamics of offering original local content on OTT platform. In this panel, I have the pleasure to welcome Ryan Solovey, Country Manager at View Africa, Damola Ademola, co-founder at InBlock Production, Ben Amadason, Netflix Director Africa Originals and Acquisition at Netflix, David Muen, Senior Solution Manager, Cloud Native Media Processing Software at Harmonic, and finally, Olu Obadina, Chairman and Chief Innovation Officer at Endeavour Communication. And this panel will be moderated by Reese Torrington, CEO at Tiguana Media. Before we kickstart with the panelists and the discussion, I would like to share with you a video from our sponsor, Harmonic.
Hi guys. Well, thanks very much for the video, David. That was interesting. Now we've got to go to some real life stuff, and let's go around and introduce the people on the panel. First of all, let's start with me, the least important. I'm Reese Torrington. I'm the Chief Executive of Tiguana Media. We're a niche consultancy based in Cape Town, Johannesburg, and today London. Helping small media companies get a foothold in the growing business right across the continent. And it's my pleasure to introduce now the rest of the speakers here. Why don't, Ryan, we'll start with you. Why don't you introduce yourself? I'm sure people know you, but for those that don't.
Thanks, Reese. Thanks for having me here today. It's a little bit interesting being here virtually and not being physical. But well done to the team for putting this all together. So my name is Ryan, and I am the country manager of View Africa. View is a freemium-based OTT service that currently is in 17 countries across the world, predominantly in Southeast Asia, and we run a service in South Africa, which launched early 2019.
Thanks, Ryan. Ben, why don't you go next?
Oh, well, hi. What were you doing? Sorry, I just logged on.
That's so early as usual. No, we're just briefly introducing ourselves, Ben. So you don't have your normal 50 minutes pitch. You've got 50 seconds.
No, sorry about that. Can you believe that I started to have builders start to do stuff outside as soon as I'm trying to get them. Anyway,
when it says building a new offer, we didn't think about building a new building.
I know, it's crazy. So yeah, so yeah, named Ben Madison, and I'm director of content for Africa for Netflix.
Super. Damola.
Hi, morning. For me, my name is Damola Ademola. I'm co-founder of InBlock Productions. We're like one of the leading producers of film content in Nigeria. And then, I mean, thanks to people like Ben, my content is now basically being seen all over the world in places like Ukraine, Brazil, the UK, the US. So, and then we're also working with them on a bunch of other things. So I'm just super excited to be here.
Great. David, I've come to you last because we've just seen your video, so we know a little bit about what Harmonic do. But then after the introduction, I'm going to throw the first question at you. But what can you add to the video about Harmonic and your role in the industry?
Okay, so my name is David. I've been working for Harmonic for a long time, focusing those last year on the OTT solutions. Harmonic is a worldwide leader in cable access and video delivery solutions. I will focus here on the video delivery part. We enable media companies, service providers to deliver ultra high quality video streaming and broadcast services to consumers globally. The streaming includes live TV, network PVRs, catch-up TV, start-over, and of course, video on demand, and this from standard definition to UHD. Our solutions include all media processing from compression to streaming to devices over CDN content delivery networks. We offer appliance solutions that you can install in your premises and operate yourself. And we offer also what we call VOS 360, pay-per-use streaming solution running in public clouds from anyone, Microsoft, Google, Amazon. We call it software as a service. And these services allow you to launch streaming services very quickly without the pain and cost of building your own infrastructure, targeting audience in your country or international audience.
Thanks, David. I know you're struggling. I shouldn't say this really for somebody who's talking about video distribution, but I know you've got a problem with your camera at the moment. It's not that you're shy.
Yes.
So just let the people in the audience know. Before we start the conference, Olu, I see you've just managed to join us. Could you just give us 30 seconds on who you are and what you do?
Sorry, please. Repeat, please.
I was seeing if Olu could also do an introduction, but I think is struggling a little bit with the connection at the moment. So let's start off and we'll see if we can link up with him as we go through. David, we were just talking about how long you've been with Harmonic, and given that you must have seen a few changes now in the industry, the transition from traditional linear sitting on the sofa all the way through to catching up with 5 minutes worth of content while you're stuck in a traffic jam on the freeway. How do you see that difference from your point of view? What impact has that had on you as a company, and how do you see that affecting the progression of the industry as a whole?
Okay, so it is very clear since a few years now that streaming is growing at a very high pace everywhere in the world. And streaming is not only targeting devices, but it is also targeting big screens. So more and more of our customers are considering and launching streaming services. In fact, all of the customers, either pure OTT players or broadcast operators, are considering and trying to launch streaming services. This has a clear impact on our vision on investment. We are investing a lot in streaming services, but we are also continuing to invest in broadcasting, because satellite, terrestrial, cable, IPTV is still there for many years, and it will have to live nice John fashion with streaming. Streaming is open also a lot of flexibility in terms of business model. Maybe we'll talk later on it. But the big trend that we have is not only selling subscription or pay-per-use, but it is also big trend is also about the flexibility offered by streaming on customization. This means customizing content according to the country, to the region that you target, but also improving your revenue with targeted advertising. And this is where we are investing a lot in our cloud solution to be able to offer these new services at scale, meaning to millions of subscribers at the same time.
We're talking specifically today about local content. Do you think that streaming and the whole OTT infrastructure makes it easier to get local content on air, or do you think it makes it more difficult? In what way do you think it could facilitate more and more local content?
With streaming, you can address a very small part of a population of a country. So you can have local content with really addressing even a few 10,000s of people. And at the same time, on the same streaming platform, you can have international content. So streaming offers a flexibility that you don't have with traditional broadcast platforms.
Do you see that, Damola, when you're putting your productions out? Do you get more traction because it's now going out over a streaming service rather than traditional?
Well, usually we use traditional cinema is usually like our first port of call, then after that it goes to streaming. But we always realize that it's kind of weird. We had the movie that came out in 2016 called The Arbitration, and whenever someone would post like a clip from it onto Twitter and spark up a conversation, would instantly see our streaming numbers go up on like platforms like Netflix. So on like a standard window that you have with a cinema, with the streaming platform, the movie that was on the platform 2 years ago might suddenly get a resurgence a year or two later due to, I don't know, conversations via the consumer. So yeah, we've seen traction. We've seen a lot of traction from the streaming platforms. And then we also see it in weird places. One of our movies basically charted in Ukraine, and you would never think that Nigerian content would be interesting. You would never believe that people in the Ukraine would be interested in Nigerian content, but well, here we are.
Well, so, I learn a lot on these conferences. I learned yesterday that in Ghana, it's Korean telenovelas that are really hitting the spot. And
oh yes, same here in Nigeria as well. Telenovelas, Korean telenovelas are the main thing.
Unbelievable. So Ryan, what do you do in View? Are you concentrating on all new production? Are you recycling things that have been seen before on linear television? Bit of both, and how much of it is local?
So yeah, interesting question, Reese. Since we started, a lot of the focus has been on local content, and when I mean local, we've been very focused on South Africa and Southern Africa as a region, as a starting point. We have got great relationship with free-to-air operators in the region, and that's really been a great starting point for us to create scale and massive reach on the platform at the moment. Next week, in fact, we launch our big View original production, which is Ubatina Wetu. It's the reinvention of Ugly Betty, a very famous series that's been around for many, many years. And we're super excited about the launch of this content. And this is, something we have always anticipated doing, going into full-scale production in the region. And we're proud to have this opportunity to take this production to market. Interesting is that this is actually a combination of partnerships with free-to-air coming into play with OTT for the first time, and being such a dynamic market from a production point of view, to have the opportunity to bring these partnerships together, as well as government funding, has been a big challenge, and we've been able to put this together. So quite excited to see where the viewership of our own originals will go to, because reliance on international content is a little bit tricky.
That must be a challenge for you as well, Ben. I mean, traditionally, well, I say traditionally, you've not been around that long, but I mean, Netflix has always been seen as a bit of a danger to existing players. It could be a little bit of a red herring in terms of being available to everybody in the masses. But what do you see? Because your role really, as I understand it, is to get more local content onto the Netflix platform. So what are the challenges that you're facing in getting that done, and are you overcoming them?
Yeah, no, I agree. So from my side of things, yeah, the focus is on local language originals, as we call it. So my team, we look after, getting, the best quality titles from our focus markets at the moment, which are Nigeria, South Africa, and we're looking more and more into acquiring content, in Kenya. But we're looking at the whole, the whole subcontinent in terms of how we grow the market.
How do you go about it? Do you look for concepts that are already there, products that are already made, or do you come up with the concepts and look for somebody to make it for you?
Yeah, no. So there are many paths to to kind of a yes, in terms of people trying to bring titles onto our service. So we have a very flexible model in terms of how producers and creatives can come and work with us, and also how broadcasters, we also partner with broadcasters. So it's a combination of both. We actually actively go out and look for strong IP or producers that have great IP as well as we get pitched, of course, quite a lot of great titles coming from the continent. So it's a really good mix, and then sometimes we see from our platform where there are gaps and things that we want to lean into, and in terms of different program categories or genres, and then we go out and maybe ask people to pitch ideas to us in those particular categories.
I mean, these labels like exclusive, original products, do they mean a lot to you in terms of gaining market share? Because unlike your Western colleagues, I guess, where sitting here in London, I don't have to worry too much about the cost of data. Whereas if you're sitting in Africa, it's a big challenge. I was just saying to somebody the other day, your pricing structure has got two elements to it: your price and then the price of getting to you. Whereas in a European market, it's just the cost of the product. So how valuable to you are things like exclusive, original labels to try and drive people to understand that it's worth the subscription to your service?
Yeah, no, having exclusive original content, of course, is a big drive for us as a company, especially, of course, in Africa. We're still, in early stages of, in terms of growing our original slate, and we're trying to now look at ways to continue to diversify in terms of the offering in the market, and make sure that we have enough depth in the kind of program categories that we provide for our members, as well as the quality, and continue to invest in much stronger quality going forward. And that quality of course is linked to working with very strong producers, experienced and strong producers on the market, but also leaning into working with new voices that are coming through, and making sure that we have that kind of diverse voice represented also on our platform. So yeah, it's the original and exclusive content is a real important factor in our future growth.
Ryan, how do you define quality? We were talking now with Ben was about quality of content. Where do you have to make a compromise between quality in terms of the type of thing that Damola would regard as being his high quality productions, and good enough because you want to get to a mass audience, and you have to compromise a little in terms of production standards. Do you face that challenge, or do you just say, if it's not quality, I'm not going to touch it?
Yeah, great question, Reese. You know, production is not a cheap business to be in, and I can see Damola shaking his head there. So
he's worried about his profit margin. Don't get fazed by him.
So yeah, it's not cheap to produce high quality original content. But you know, we have really pushed the bar and really tried to produce high quality content. And you know, I'm quite positive when we see what we're going to release, the quality will come through. And you know, as Ben said, also we've been pitched a lot of different productions over the last couple of years, and it's been quite difficult to turn a lot of them away because they do tick certain amounts of boxes, but they don't tick, you know, the quality box in a lot of instances. And a lot of them, you know, a lot of these productions went ahead anyway. We didn't get involved in them, and a lot of them were not success stories. So you know, quality for us at this early stage of full scale production is super important. And I think by being able to leverage multiple partnerships in the ecosystem does allow for one to produce high quality content, even if it comes at a more expensive price tag. So, you know, our world, being a freemium service, does allow for us to leverage off advertising opportunities, which we're quite excited about. And, you know, we live in this world of kind of SVOD, AVOD. And yeah, anyway, that's kind of where we're at, Reese.
Great, thanks. Olu, it looks like you've managed to get your system working, so welcome. Do you want to take 30 seconds just to introduce yourself and NVivo Communications, and then perhaps you can offer your thoughts on this whole idea about quality and how important it is to getting to a mass market?
Okay, thank you very much. My name again is Olu Obadino, and I'm Chairman and Chief Innovation Officer at NVivo Communications. We do a few things in NVivo. We are a network service provider. We have our own Cisco systems-based cloud infrastructure in Lagos, with a backup network in Paris, Equinox. And but on top of that, we've also built our own online streaming platform. It's called NVivo TV. And in the last 1 year and 3 months, we've run it as a free VOD service. And our next step in the evolution of that product is now a case of running the platform as a service to third-party operators. So basically, at the moment, we are working with a couple of banks in Nigeria to run their own TV service. So Fidelity Bank is coming up with Fidelity TV. Sterling Bank is coming up with One TV, and First Bank is coming up with First TV. Now, what you see before now is that most of these banks, especially, would set up a full operation to run a TV service, you know, for their content-based marketing. But what we've done is we are now offering our platform as a service to corporates to run their TV service, outsource everything to us, you know, from production to deployment to support to, you know, everything. So we sit down with clients and they give us, you know, their production budget, and then we go to them time and again with the requisite content, you know, that we believe will fit into their brand or help, you know, promote certain products or services that they're offering. On the issue of quality, when we started, we actually commissioned about 30 original TV series of our own, one thing we battled with at the beginning, because we were not producing in-house, we're commissioning producers to produce for us. It was really, really difficult, to see consistency, in the quality of the production. At the end of the day, I believe as of today, we're getting somewhere with that. However, looking at the audience and the kind of network capacity that they have, going overboard in terms of quality would not make so much difference, because the audience lack, the kind of bandwidth capacity that you require to actually appreciate, quality production. So I believe that where we are at the moment is just to find that balance, between what works and, not also be like a platform for junk, productions.
Not that I want to link you with junk productions, Damola, but how reliant are you on networks such as Olu's to be able to get more eyeballs looking at your productions outside of the cinema?
Okay, so it's slightly different, partly because I've met Olu not just once, but we technically do not use his platform, but we use platforms similar to his. Most of the platforms we rely on are for distribution outside of Nigeria. Our primary means within Nigeria right now has been the cinemas. So most of the time, once we create content, our content is primarily to go to the cinemas. With looking at the windowing, we're looking at the windowing model and trying to figure out what's the best window to come into the cinemas, so that we can then now start our distributions outside of that to like airlines and then to like the streamers. So essentially, it's all in a bid to be commercially viable as possible. Right? Yeah. So our focus is cinemas. So if you look at it, and let me give you a bit of a background. When we talk about production in Nigeria, one of the most expensive movies that has been made in Nigeria, Wedding Party 1, for example, basically cost like about $300,000 to make. And that movie is just up until December was the highest grossing movie in Nigeria, and it made like about $1.5 million at the time, right? That's the margins in which we are working in. And that, by Nigerian standards, is a high-end, high production content, right? Now you have much lower content that sometimes, so other people use things like, I know a bunch of people, the lady who just basically broke the record and made what, 600 million naira at the box office in December. She basically has like a whole YouTube channel where she creates content for YouTube. But of course, you can realize that the content you're creating for YouTube is completely different from the content that you'll be putting out in cinema. They just don't mix, right? And would also be completely different from the content you'll be putting out on TV, right? Just that we don't have a strong TV model like you do in the UK, where you have like the BBC. If it's the US, you've got PBS and the rest of them, and CBS and the rest of them. But for us, TV is not such a strong avenue for us. So we basically rely on cinema a lot more, because that allows you to reach out to the people. People can pay to watch it. There's a working model, there's a working financial model within the cinema exhibitors and the producers. So we get our money back on time. And then there is now there's the licensing and distribution, where you try to get it outside of the country to streamers like the OTT platforms, or onto like airlines and stuff, right? So that you can then start to recoup your investment.
Right. Ben, when I look at your business, this internationalization of what might be termed local content is quite an interesting topic. I mean, Ryan is predominantly looking at Southern Africa. Damola's got a very Nigerian hat on, etc., etc. You, of course, have got the whole continent to play with. So taking African content across African borders is one thing. But I'm guessing, too, you must have a mission to take African content to other places. How does technology help you with that? how do you also look at the appeal of that content? Does it affect the things that you select? Do you select, I mean, something that's going to work in Namibia because it's going to work in Namibia, or do you already think about, well, could this work for the diaspora, maybe in Europe or in the US?
No, very, very good question. Thank you for that, Reese. Yeah, look, from our side, we believe, of course, great stories are universal. They can come from anywhere, be loved, everywhere, of course. So, what part of the big drive from the African side of the business is just making sure we find the best and the most authentic stories from the different parts of Africa that we are focused on at the moment. And those stories, what we have seen is that those stories are getting a lot of love, similar to what Demola was saying earlier on about, how he's getting feedback from all over the world, providing that platform that allows us to take those great authentic stories, from great creatives in Africa and to be presented in the world. We've been very excited to see how they've, translated, and we expect that, and that the stronger and the better quality that we continue to produce in the continent, the more and more there'll be more love for what we show all around the world. So that's been a very important aspect of it. We also, as we're very focused on making sure that the experience of people around the world for African content is quite strong in terms of how we localize our content. So we can have title from South Africa, that will be translated to over 11 languages, dubbed languages, and in subtitles over 30 subtitles. So the experience for the local viewer, could be as watching something local, in their languages, and that experience also is critical in terms of helping those stories get across to a wider group. So that's part of that aspect. And and for us, the ability of allowing our members to be able to choose, and to suggest the right type of titles. We know everyone's tastes, of course, are very varied, in terms of what they love and what they want to see on the platform. So we're giving them that control and choice. But yeah, so that suggestion mechanism also helps.
Do you get a good feel on whether this is working or not? I mean, you could play devil's advocate and say people have always spoken about local content, but when push comes to shove, they still like the big Hollywood stuff, and they'll watch something local if there isn't a latest Pirates of the Caribbean to watch. Does it really work, or is it just a nice piece of bullshit to keep the regulators happy?
Really, really good one. So maybe I start with that one since you're on me still. Look, I local content really, we're seeing the impact. I mean, on our service, and you can see that we're investing more and more in local content, and it's not because we're just investing for the sake of it. It's people want to see themselves represented on screen, from these markets, and they, of course, they engage more with some of the stories that have more particular relevance in their world. So that's we're seeing really great impact, and I think that, like I mentioned earlier, the big excitement from from my part is how they actually work, and how these titles are actually traveling beyond the country, and within Africa, as we mentioned, and beyond Africa, which is the really exciting. But local content does work, and it's and it's quite powerful as well in terms of connecting to our members.
Ryan, do you see yourself as an exporter of content, or are you mainly an importer?
Just echoing kind of what Ben has also said, African local content does outshine other content in terms of performance on the platform. It also gives the user base a stronger emotional feeling towards the platform. There's been so many SVOD players and platforms that have come and gone that have purely been focused on Hollywood content. And I think we've kind of passed those days now. So if you don't invest in local content, I don't see there being, a long, obviously you're not in it for the long run. And it's very easy to go license international content and assume that people are going to watch it, and people will watch it, but people will engage much more with local content. So for us, local content is super, super important. Back to, your question is exporting. We're seeing a lot of our local content that we've now produced being dubbed into French for Francophone Africa. And that's an interesting avenue for us. We've also taken some local content and put it into Southeast Asia. Funnily enough, Indonesia, great viewers of South African content, believe it or not. So I think it's early days to see where some of the local produced content will perform best. And you mentioned earlier Korean content performing so well in Ghana. This is not the first time I'm hearing this. So this is something really interesting. And View is basically the biggest licensor of Korean content globally. So yeah, there's lots of interesting opportunities still around, and we're continuously looking and doing research in what moves the needle, and that's where we'll invest.
David, how much can Harmonic help with this ambition to make high quality African content available, not just within the continent, but to the diaspora?
Okay, by using our cloud solution, we can allow a very fast time to market. We can allow those operators to scale according to their success. Our VOS 360 software as a service platform can run in a multiple data centers. So according to the geography, according to the target country, it could be in Europe, it could be in the USA, it could be in Asia, it could be in Africa. So according to the target countries, it could be one or multiple. We will activate our software in one or multiple instances, and then scale it. You can start small. You have a few thousand customers. So we have a few servers activated, and you can grow up to millions of subscribers, even just for a few hours or a few days for an event. And we can do that scale up and scale down. This means that the cost will be always in line with your revenues. It is really pay-per-use. It is fast to market. You don't have to invest. We just ask you to send us assets, video on-demand files, or uplink your live content, and we take care of everything. You don't need to have a video expert or IT engineers. We will do all that stuff for you day and night. You don't have to worry about hardware, software maintenance. It is all included in the services. And security, very, very important. You will not find the best, you will have the best IT security services. It is all handled by these cloud platforms. We can even, for premium events, you can even activate, for instance, 2 geo-redundant cloud services. Even if one data center burns, it will be seamless switch to the backup one. And the cloud also allow you to activate at your pace when you find it interesting for you. New services like targeted ad insertion or DAI. You can have, for each profile of your audience, differentiated advertising, and this will impact a lot on your revenues. And what is also very important for our topic here, if you have a live channel that you send to Europe, to Asia, and to the USA, the advertising which has been inserted locally are not relevant for these 3 parts of the world. And then you will have the capability to customize the advertising according to the geography. And the last point is what we call channel variants. Maybe you don't want to customize not only the advertising, but also part of the programs. And this is something that we can easily do at the scale of a country or even very large larger scale. For instance, we are deploying in the USA an application where a single channel will have 50 different variants according to the cities where it's where the reach is. So we can expand it at the scale of the world. This is something which is really easy to do with cloud solutions.
Great, thanks very much. Ryan, if we climb down off the moral high ground of wanting to take African content to the world, etc., ultimately still going to make some money. What's your approach to monetizing this, both within your own area of influence in Southern Africa, but then looking beyond that? How do you approach this, the balance between subscriptions, advertising, TVOD type services?
Yeah, I mean, Reese, this is a tough business. There's no question about it. Making subscription entertainment services work in Africa is not an easy task. And it does require lots of trial and error. So, you know, what we've done, I think we've done really well, is we've adopted the freemium model. And we, you know, View has become a go-to platform for big brands in South Africa, you know, the Nedbanks of the world, the Standard Banks, you know, the banks, the insurance companies. We've had the opportunity to have these big brands buy inventory on View. So it's no longer, well, YouTube is the only place, or Facebook or Google. You know, View has now become a trusted platform for many, many brands. We've got repeat clients coming back, and we've started to generate healthy revenues through AVOD on our platform. Now, having said that, you know, building an AVOD platform is very different to building an SVOD platform from a technical point of view, from a commercialization point of view. It's kind of very two different worlds. And, you know, I think sometimes we kind of take for granted what we've done by putting these two services together, where we've got an SVOD strategy and an AVOD strategy. You know, to be honest, we found that SVOD is more difficult than AVOD at this point in time. And I think that's a combination of lack of accessibility to mass local content, as well as, you know, COVID hasn't helped the cause in people paying for entertainment in Africa, maybe in other parts of the world. We've seen that change. But SVOD still does remain a challenge, and will remain a challenge for time to come. So yeah, our focus has been very much getting AVOD right, and I think we've done that well. And we'll continue to invest.
The climate would change as well if, apart from Ben, some of the other typical players like Amazon or Disney were able to get more traction in Africa. At the moment, you haven't got a lot of competition in an SVOD marketplace. Do you think that would make any difference?
Yeah, look, and from my side, in terms of the work we're trying to do, we're trying to also try to build, you know, a lot of capacity, invest in capacity building opportunities within Africa, and in terms of mostly on the talent side, of course, you know, we've also helped, you know, during the hardship fund, you know, we've provided, you know, some relief on that side, and we've also helped with, you know, in terms of development opportunities with the Realness Institute, and we've recently announced in South Africa a deal with the National Film and Video Foundation in that market to support this group. But I see the more you know, companies that come into the environment and also make more investments, you know, the likes, of course, you know, with Ryan and all the other players in the market still investing heavily, you know, the incumbents, pay TV, still investing heavily in the market. I think that's only going to make sure we have a more robust ecosystem to you know, to help elevate, you know, the offering in the market. And I think a lot of the infrastructure related companies will follow suit. You know, we know from our backgrounds that they're investing very heavily, you know, in building infrastructure across Africa. And I think ultimately over time, the demand on the content side, people wanting to switch and do a lot more digital viewing will also help prompt, hopefully help, prompt that kind of, adoption of, more and more kind of, digital services by our members. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing in a way, Ryan, you're in a reasonable position, having sort of focused more on AVOD, that you can coexist with however many SVOD players there are, whereas the average consumer is probably only going to take out one, maybe two subscriptions, even if they can afford the data. Whereas you can just sneak in and out and charge people for what they want to see via the AVOD model.
Yeah, it does lend itself to that, Reese. Exactly that. But there's other challenges. There's high churn rates. AVOD revenue streams are not the same as SVOD revenue streams. So in all the regions that View is in today, 17 markets and growing, SVOD is a big focus area for us as a group. But it does kind of boil down a lot to content, and original content, as Ben also said, is like super important. It does come at a cost, and you have to scale it as well. So for us to get to that point where we want to get to of a sustainable SVOD revenue stream, content is key for us.
Thanks, Ryan. Damolo, I've got a question coming in as well from the audience, which may be up your street as well, which is really asking about whether there's merit in simultaneous releases in cinemas, digital rental, putting it out on SVOD services. Does that work? Could it work? Should it work?
Okay, so I think that's really something that came about as a result of COVID, right? Where because of cinemas not being open, they basically collapsed the window and then basically had it in cinemas and out on streaming at the same time. I think it's too early for the Nigerian market at the moment. I know almost every time we bring a movie out, we've got people, maybe it can possibly work in a situation where if you release a movie in Nigeria, you maybe might release it in another country roughly around the same time so that you have like a simultaneous release. But I think it's too early for the African continent. And
when I lived in Dar es Salaam, films were released simultaneoely by the guys at the traffic lights. Is that a problem that you still face with the piracy?
So we had that a while back when we released Wedding Party 1, which was, like I said, the highest grossing movie at that time. And we basically spent while it was in cinemas, it was in cinemas for like about 2-3 months. And we spent like the last 2, 3, 4 months basically knocking down Dropbox links, YouTube links that were of the pirated content. Eventually, it made it out into traffic just as we were leaving cinemas. And at some point, we were like, we can't beat them. We might as well join them. So we also made DVDs and just basically said, we'll put that out as well. I think for every one DVD we sold, the pirates sold like 200. So I don't think it was a good idea. It didn't work out for us eventually. So I won't advise it, because the moment you do that simultaneous release, over here, what would most likely happen is that it gets pirated, and that automatically would affect, cinema is a friction anyways, in that I have to leave my house, make my way over to the cinema, basically pay for very expensive popcorn and cola just to watch a movie. If I can do that online, that friction basically will never get overcome.
But it's interesting, somebody from NBC was telling me the other day that the best-selling pirated shows or movies in Africa at the moment are those that were actually out on HBO and on Disney, therefore by definition not available in Africa.
Exactly.
But these things were going like hotcakes because of that very issue.
Yeah, if you want Game of Thrones in traffic, I can get it for you right now. Do you want a copy?
We'll talk after this session.
Demola, Reese's other name is Jack Sparrow. You do know that.
Olu, can you bring a voice of sense into all of this technology? Can you help with the guys protecting their assets?
It's a conversation that has been going on for so long. Let me just give you a little bit of background in Nigeria. What I've noticed, the producers like Demola have always been complaining about pirates, but what I found out was that lately the pirates have become so rich that they are actually producers now, and they actually now come out and produce by themselves. The issue of using technology to stop piracy is another issue that we've had a lot of conversations around. There are things relating to using watermarks and things like that, but there is nothing technologically speaking that can stop a man from putting his phone camera on while watching a movie on his laptop or even TV, but online or on his phone. There is no technology of such. However, there are actually, like Demola also mentioned, there are technologies that are basically about spoofing and looking around the net to find out that, okay, as soon as they put it up, it goes down, it gets shut down. Very, very, very hard work as well, because you sometimes have to keep someone at it, like 24/7. But apart from that, there is still little technology can do, in this case. The other thing that I would want to also say is that I think that producers in Africa are shooting themselves in the foot in terms of monetization, by not having a very deep and intensive digital strategy. We don't have cinemas in Africa. In the US, you have one cinema screen for every 8,000 people. Even in China, you have one cinema screen for every 36,000 people. In Nigeria, we have a cinema screen for maybe 1.5 million, 2 million people, and that's one of the best stories coming out of Africa in terms of cinema. So we really don't have enough. If you take a generation building cinemas, we still won't have enough. So really, one of the reasons that Africa was a very deep and early adopter of mobile phones was because we simply don't have the conventional terrestrial lines. So it was born out of necessity. And today we have very interesting successful story coming out of that sector, across the continent. And I think we could repeat the same in the area of distributing and monetizing our content.
Great. Thanks, guys. As always, the hour's flying by. So what I'd like to do now is just go around and get a minute from each of you, really, on where you see yourself investing your company's money over the next 2, 3, 4 years to really drive this, in particular, if you can, with reference to local content, which is really the subject of this session. Demola, why don't I start with you for no other reason other than the fact that you're in top left in my screen.
All right, no problem. In the nearest future, I would like to borrow from, there was a movie that came on the Netflix platform recently called Namaste Wahala, which was a cross-border story between like between Nigeria and India. And things like that, what we realized was that created a number of opportunities. More people were interested, partly because there was the Bollywood element and then there was the Nigerian element. And I think Ben was responsible for that. So those kind of movies where we can showcase more of Africa, where there's nothing wrong with showing like a Nigerian-Africa cross-production, a Nigeria-Kenya cross-production, then so that way even a Nigeria-UK cross-production, so that there's more cross-pollination, there's more people are, how will I put it? There's more interest in it as a result of that cross-pollination. At the same time, we're looking also to broadening our scope and providing more content. And what are the kinds of stories that we can tell? Luckily for us, with more streamers being interested in Nigeria because our content is Traveling, it means that our stories can change. I don't have to think about it in 2-hour blocks anymore. I can now think about it as a mini series. Can I think about something as an extended play? So those are the kind of things that we're now looking at, where I'm not constrained by cinema, where my movie has to be 2 hours, or I really would suffer. Now, maybe a mini series might work. Maybe an extended series might work. Maybe I might want to tell, different stories of various lengths. Those are the kind of things that come into play for us. And then working across borders with a lot of other people. What we've realized over the years is every time a new player has come into the market, the Nigerian producers has improved. When we had to get our music videos onto Channel O and MTV, our production value improved. When MultiChoice set up in Nigeria and started doing their TV shows, our production value increased. When Netflix came into the market, our production values went up. When the cinemas came into the market, our production value went up. So it's only a matter of time. The more exposure we get, the better we get at telling our stories. So
Ben, I think you mentioned in dispatches there, how can you support Damola on his mission?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a big objective of ours to support creatives, in terms of how they improve the quality, as you say, quality in terms of story writing, writing, in terms of course, talent, in terms of just increasing the production values. So that's where a lot of the kind of focus will be. We've got different teams helping in the capacity building space as well. We've got an initiative called Grow Creative, who are working across different markets. We want to also invest in making sure that there's a diverse range of voices coming out of Africa, in terms of for more women creators, for example, from within the countries, making sure that we are diversifying, our offering within Nigeria or within South Africa to make sure we're looking at all the different communities in those markets as well. So yes, we're looking at, in terms of investing in those type of stories. That's very important. I mentioned earlier on about product innovation around, how we choose and suggest titles for our members. That's something that's very, very important for us as well. In Africa, start to also market our offerings a little bit more in the key markets, so people are aware of some of the great stories that are coming out of the continent, and also broader, globally as well, to see, some of, so that's the big push from our side.
Thanks, Ben. Ryan, in a minute, I guess a similar agenda from you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's much the same as we've heard, Reese. I think just for me, a key focus area is partnerships across the continent are super important. You can't deny the fact that the mobile operators are, key gateway keepers into the region. So, we try to build strong relationships and strong ties with the operators, as well as the free-to-air platforms as well. I think, by leveraging, again, of all the multiple partnerships in the region, you can create greater reach than you could on an OTT platform alone. And you can create, a lot more investment into local production. So yeah, I can't really add much more than that.
Great, thanks very much, David. As the sponsor of this session, I'll let you close it off. And maybe Olu, I don't know if you want to relate to what David's saying as we get to the end now.
Okay, yeah, quickly, I'll just like to say that, just to corroborate what he's saying, we've reached a point in our organization and evolution where we are looking at the continent as a single market. We have about 40 developers and product team working on a digital iteration of cinema, like we said earlier, and it's called iCinema. It's going to be launched, I think, end of Q3 this year. We also were planning before now to set up a studio, build a studio in Lagos, but we decided to invest in the expansion of a Moroccan studio now, because it's not necessarily different. Lagos, Casablanca, seem like same market, but the very important story and the important theme in the next couple of years will be taking African story into mainstream Hollywood.
Super. David, last word to you then as we close down.
Okay, so the topic today was about local content on with our solution. We would be really pleased to help having your local content streamed and broadcast in your country, but also in the continent and over on other continents. We are continuously investing in the cloud solution, in the streaming solution. They are really the big trends for the coming years. We are improving the technology, for instance, working on new codecs VVC to decrease again and again the cost of bandwidth to stream your contents. We are working a lot on all what is targeted advertising, customizing, personalizing the content. All of this is in the trend of offering
That's
more.
so, David, we now need to cease, I think, otherwise we're going to get cut off midstream. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you guys.
Bye.